Today we will discuss one of the most important topic of the comparative politics, and that is regime change. Regime change is important in many aspects because in the modern world, in everyday politics, regime change is uh, taking importance because of its relevance to the modern day politics and of its relevance to the modern day political changes. So the first thing is that what is regime change? Regime change is actually when there is a political system in a state. For example, there is a political system A, there is a political system B, there is a political system C. So when these political systems has changed alternatively, it is called regime change. What it actually means, if we look into the regime change in a more abstract way, so there are three types of main regimes changes that exist in our modern political system. The first one is democratization. The second one is military coup, and the third one is revolution. But why these three type of regime changes took place? It is because for the shift in the political system. So it means that we must have some types of political system. We also have two types of main political systems. The first one is authoritarian regime, and the second one is democratic regime. So in a very simple way, when these two types of political systems are converted into each other, whether through one of these process, it is called actually the regime change. Now we will discuss one by one all these political changes that happen and which help in the regime change, or which help in the conversion or shifting from the one type of political system to another type of political system. So the first I will start from the democratization. Democratization, in order to explain all these three processes in a very conclusive and a detailed way, I will took I will divide it into certain parts. Like the first, I will discuss that what is democratization. The second uh, thing which I will discuss is how it took place. So in this we will discuss the democratic transition. Then there will be the founding elections. Then we will discuss about democratic consolidation. Then we will discuss about two turnover test, and then at the end of the day we will discuss two case studies in order to explain all these processes in a more practical way. The first case studies will be regarding the Mexico, and the second will be regarding Russia. Well, Mexico case studies will tell us that how Mexico from 1929 to 2016 shift from authoritarian regime to the democratic regime, and in which point they have achieved the democratic transition, in which point they have at which point they have achieved founding election, at which point they have started democratic consolidation, at which point they have achieved the democratic consolidation, and how now at the moment the Mexico democratic regime is working. Then we will discuss about the Russia in a case study, and in Russia we will see that how they move from authoritarian regime in 1990s to the electoral democracy. But at the same time, the after 2000 Russia democratic system deteriorated, and today they are called electoral authoritarianism. So what is electoral authoritarianism and how we will discuss it in the process of democratization? So it means that the democratization process has also one end process which is called democratic breakdown, which is happening in the Russia right now. So now we will come to our discussion, and we will see that actually we will discuss that how there is the authoritarian regime in any state, then how the democratic transition happen, then how consolidation happen, and how breakdown happen. For this we will start take start from the process of democratization. So, the simple definition of democratization is the change in the political system from authoritarian values to the democratic values is called democratization. Authoritarian value क्या होते हैं, or what is authoritarian values, and what is democratic values? So the first authoritarian value is that there will be no consensus building, no election, limited civil society involvement, and the last one will be the rule of permanent entity. एक one permanent entity will rule for a long period of time. So this is what is called authoritarian values. Now what is democratic values? When there is a consensus building for the type of political system, there is elections at regular interval, and the third one is there is a proper strong civil society, and last but not the least there is a change in political actors through elections. So this is what is called the process of democratization, when we shift from the authoritarian values to the democratic values. So this process of democratization has three main steps. The first step is the democratic transition, And what is democratic transition? Democratic transition is a very simple process where the political actors and civil society combine and bring reforms in the political system. It is called democratic transition. But what will be the political reforms? The reforms will support democratic values. Now, who will be these political actors? These political actors include the actors of authoritarian regime plus opposition plus the new movements that arise in that system. In order to understand these things, let's take the example of Pakistan. In 1960s, there was the authoritarian regime in Pakistan. At that time, after the realization of difficulties in the regime, the political parties that exist combine with the social movements and also attract civil society. Now, what they actually done, they compel the dictator to bring reforms. Then what happens? These reforms actually leads to the first election in 1970, and from here the democratic process initiated in Pakistan. So this is actually the democratic transition. One of the very important part of the democratic transition is the founding election. We will never ever call any democratic transition successful until the founding election took place. So what is founding election? Founding election is actually when the reforms took place. After the reforms, on the basis of this reform may be in the form of constitution or maybe in the form of political rules. No, on the basis of this constitution and this political rules, the first election took place, new government formed on the basis of this first election. This at this point actually the democratic transition completed. Okay, now the second process started and is now democratic consolidation. Consolidation means strengthen. Now the different political actors that actually existing in the system try to strengthen their democratic system, to strengthen the democracy, to make the democratic, yeah, or the democratization strengthen to the extent that it did not fire back. For example, in every political transition or in every regime change, there is a chance that it has fire break. For example, in a country, if the democratic transition took place, so the authoritarian rulers, it may be in the form of dictator, it may be in the form of prince or any actor, he will try to conserve to their old system in order to assume his powers. So for this process, the supporter of the democracy started the process of democratic consolidation. And what is democratic consolidation? Democratic consolidation is actually the strengthening of the democratic institutions. Strengthening of democratic institution, what it means? Strengthening of democratic institutions. Actually, in every democratic system, there are three basic institutions. The first one is legislature, what we call it parliament. The second one is election commission, and the third one is judiciary. Until and unless these three institutions are strength, strengthened, strong, or these three institutions are properly worked, there is no chance for the dictator or for the any authoritarian actors to invade the democratic process or to invade the process of democratization. But when any of these three institutions weaken or they didn't work properly, it become easy for the authoritarian actors or for the authoritarian rulers to invade the system and to uh, break down the democratic process in a state. So how the democratic consolidation will be observed in a state? So for this there is a very simple test, and this is called two turn over test. What is two turnover test? Actually, two turnover test mean that, for example, a country that is uh, A, in this country, the democratic transition took place, founding elections happened, and in founding election, for example, the political party star become successful. Now, when another election took place and the second political party, for example, Moon, becomes successful and a peaceful transition of power took place to the new political party through a free and fair election. This process is called two turn or test, and here it is said that democracy is consolidated, because now it means that in this state there is a very good environment for the democratic transition, for the for the new uh, political parties or for the new political actors to assume power, and through the consensus, through the election, through the agreement, through the proper process. So this is actually what is called democratic consolidation. Now there is a last process which is called democratic breakdown. What is democratic breakdown? Democratic breakdown is actually when the after the democratic transition, democratic breakdown actually happen at two different occasion. Maybe it took place after the democratic transition. For example, democratic transition happened, but after democratic transition, the single party took all the powers. They established the single party authoritarian regime. The election happened after every interval of time, but the same political party assumed power again and again. The party did not give environment to the other political parties to establish or to compete in a free and fair election. So this is what is called the democratic breakdown after the democratic transition. The second happened after the democratic consolidation. For example, even the democratic consolidation took place, and there is a free and fair election, and the new political actor assumed the power, but then the military dictator invade the democracy. The example of this is Russia. In Russia, although there is a democratic transition happen in 1990s, but since 1990s the same single the party is ruling the Russia, and they are not allowing other political parties to uh, grow in a free and fair election and in free and fair environment. So Russia has the single party rule, or we can call it more simply the authority is electoral authoritarian regime, where the election took place but still the authoritarian or the single party or the single entity rule are ruling there. On the other side, the example of democratic consolidation is actually Egypt. In Egypt, there a very proper election took place in 2011, and the president Mursi took power, which was the process of democratic consolidation, because in free and fair election the new political entity took place, or took the power, but then the dictator invade, and now in Egypt there is a dictatorship since last 14 years. So this is the proper example of democratic breakdown. Now we will conclude all these processes with examples. So the first process is transition, the second is founding election, the third is consolidation, the fourth one is two turn over test, and the fifth is breakdown. So transition is actually reforms. Mexico 1929, reforms took place. Russia 1990s. The first founding election took place in Mexico in 1929, in Russia in 1996. Consolidation started in Mexico after 2012, when the new party win election. In Russia, no consolidation. To turn our test, Mexico has passed it in 2012. Russia failed to pass it. Breakdown, yes. In Russia, breakdown has underway, because with every day the power of the Putin is strengthening, while the power of the Duma, which is the legislature of the Russia, is decreasing. So we can call it the democratic backsliding. The more prominent word for the democratic breakdown is called democratic backsliding. So today we have discussed the process from democratization to backsliding. If you have any type of question, kindly put it in the comment section. I will answer in the next lecture when I will discuss about the another regime change, and that is the military coup. That how military coup occur, what are its different types, what are its different steps, what are the different processes that involve in it, and also its case studies. And then we will discuss about the revolution. Thank you so much.